Blitz is defined as a sudden, savage attack. It is indeed all this. The effect is sure. The premise is simple. It's a basic, primal confrontation, man to man. No excuses are offered, none accepted.
Welcome to the latest edition of Longhorn Blitz with Horns247.com.
Looks like a radio station.
Now, here are your hosts, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers.
I transcend race, hombre.
Matt Butler.
I don't talk, man. I back it up. And we are chock full of that, man. Damn right.
And Jeff Howe.
It's still real to me, damn it.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
If you're gonna blitz, come strong, but don't come at all.
Coming strong with a spring break edition of Longhorn Blitz with Horns247.com. I am Jeff Howe. Let me bring in the rest of the team. He is the master of the soundboard, the drop machine extraordinaire, Matt Butler. Matt, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
You know, Matt, we're adults now. We don't really get spring break, but we still have to call it spring break since the Longhorns are on.
Very true. We do cover college, so we stay aligned with those school schedules.
My wife's a teacher, so she does actually have a job where she gets spring break. So,
makes sense.
Yeah, that and the spring practice schedule is the only way I would even know it still.
It's a beautiful thing. Being grown and getting the spring break, it's pretty cool.
But then I see the stuff she has to deal with.
It's tough
for that time during the school day, and it's especially when you get in that administrative role.
Administrative middle schoolers, that would be a little
more money, more problems.
You definitely, let's just say more problems. How about that?
Some money, more problems.
There you go.
More responsibility.
A man who knows all about more money, more problems. He is a Renaissance man, not just here on the Blitz, but at the Austin Radio Network and on the Horn, where you can hear him each and every weekday on the Rodcast from 1 to 3. Lifetime Longhorn, 2002 UT All-American, 2002 semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, 4th-round draft choice of the New York Giants back in 2003. Spent his NFL career with the Giants, Lions, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, and a year with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. When he was done with football, got himself back to Austin, Texas, in the 40 acres, where he earned his degree. Whenever he gets that T ring in, he will wear it proudly. Nevertheless, he is a card-carrying member, a black card member of DBU, number 21 in your program, but number 1 in your hearts, Mr. Rod Babers. And gentlemen, let's just start out by letting me apologize to everybody, all our listeners out there. If last week's show seemed off, I apologize, because I told you guys before we did the show I wasn't feeling well.
Public apology.
I'm just saying, if it was off, I mean, I know I don't sound that great anyway, but I struggled through last week's show. By the time I got home, guys, I was like the fever and the chills and the whole deal. I
knew you were sick. That's true.
I'd text you guys and be like, look, I know we didn't shake hands, but just in case, like, I came into contact with you guys, make sure you take, some extra vitamin C or some Airborne or whatever you do. I had the fever and the whole.
So was the flu? Did you self-diagnose?
No, I mean, I did. My fever would like come back. It would come and then go away, and then come back and go away.
Flashes.
Probably by
a weird bug.
I would say probably by like mid-afternoon Friday, I felt good. Yeah. So it was probably like pretty much from like Tuesday through like Thursday night.
Yeah, see, I mean, my girl's got it right now. Like, it hit her like a ton of bricks like 2 days ago. She was done. She had to skip work yesterday.
I wouldn't say it's full-on flu, but it's...
from between you and her, I'm expecting to get it. I'm expecting any day to just get
maybe you're just one
by the virus. But I like my immune system being tested. Yeah. I can think that I'm Wolverine at times, so I can like avoid some of this stuff. And
you might have been the carrier, though. You may have.
I did not, no.
Okay, did you have a flu shot?
No.
Man? I might be the carrier, you say so?
No, but if you're so immune, you can carry it. You can be like the person that's the bridge between the two.
Could be, but I don't get sick very often. But
it would make sense if you were the carrier.
Yeah, I pride myself on not being like taken out by the flu, like
me too,
missing work and bedridden because of it. So yeah, I don't know the last time I was like bedridden and.
I did one time. The only time I was ever sent home from that last radio station.
Oh yeah,
Danny sent me home from doing that. And Ellie, get out of here.
get the hell home before you get us.
Before that was middle school. Yeah,
because you could just get. I mean, for a big company like that, you can get everybody.
They were right. I had strep throat.
Yeah,
had no clue.
The studio, as I like to say, that smelled like farts and coffee. But by the time we were no longer allowed on the premises.
But nobody's sick though, so. It obviously it worked. Whatever you did to make sure it only stayed. It make sure the illness was only.
Apparently, it's one of those deals that's been going around. It lasts like 3 days, and then you're good.
Yeah. And then you're pretty good trooper too, because honestly, like I didn't notice any deterioration in the show or when I did the syndicated version, listening back and cutting it up. Sound like a normal show. So that is testament to your strength.
Felt it big time.
Well done.
There you go, man. Way to suck it up.
No.
Yeah, not to make myself a martyr.
Zombied his way through the show.
Word or something, but yeah,
you faked it till you made it, man.
that flu-like stuff, whatever it is, it's
called muscle memory, I believe is what we call it in the football realm. Yeah. Man, I don't really remember anything, but man, you had a PBU, really? Hey, man, muscle memory.
Speaking of PBUs, Rod, let's go ahead and look. I want to look at NFL free agency real quick, and man, DBU is alive and well, because if you look at the re-signings this offseason, let's throw in the extension Quandre Diggs got in September, which he was, I think, going to come free, or I think might have been restricted. He went ahead and re-upped with the Lions.
Yeah, they wanted to get that done quickly. Matt Patricia really liked Quandre.
Adrian Phillips re-ups with the Chargers. Earl Thomas signs a huge deal with the Ravens. Kenny Vaccaro re-ups, gets him a nice little payday, $26 million, $11.5 guaranteed.
But he said he was surprised by the way. He said he was expecting a one-year deal for about $12 million. And then he said his Ravens came in, and he admitted like that was a wholly Chicago move. Like, well, I didn't expect that.
And see, what's funny about that is what was perceived during the time whenever he signed the one-year deal was almost that he was betting on himself, knowing that you had some year coming up where you could go and put a good piece of season out on tape and be able to make big money. Yeah.
So Kenny Vaccaro turns a one-year prove-it deal into a multi-year deal at the Titans. But Rod, the point is, if you look at those 4 contracts, and I know like guaranteed money and total money, nobody ever sees the total money on an NFL contract.
Yeah. Unless you're Mike Trout.
If you look at the total, which I just saw that come down.
All 83 players in baseball that are paid more than Aaron Rodgers.
You look at those 4 deals, Rod, for Texas DBs, for DBU members, and the total value of those contracts could be upwards of about $120 million in those 4 contracts.
That's awesome.
DBU's alive and well, man.
No, it's I think, and it's a lot at play there. For everybody make their money different ways, though, because Earl Thomas's money. Earl Thomas is different from a Kenny Vaccaro and different from a Quandre. He makes his money as the biggest difference maker, arguably, in the NFL as a defender on the back end. A guy that can just change the game and even win a game for you because of his instincts. He's a ball hawk. He's truly a kind of a 5-tool safety. And we'll see how the Ravens utilize him, but I assume they're going to use him just like the Seahawks did. But they could use him differently.
Well, they used Eric Weddle this year.
Yeah, the Ravens secondary is going to be really good, by the way. I mean, they got Jimmy Smith on one corner. They got Marlon Humphrey on the other. Tavon Young, good nickel, slot corner. And they also got Tony Jefferson. I believe is the other safety that's going to be teamed up with him. So that's why he made his money. And he's a walk-in Hall of Famer. So, that's why he makes his money. And at 30 years old, which he'll be when the season starts, go look at all the great safeties, some of whom have played with the Ravens.
I like you've done the research on this.
The Rod Woodsons and, Eric Weddle is another great example. All right, Ed Reed. After 30 years old, if you got a Hall of Fame safety, he's a Hall of Fame safety, most of those guys have great careers, 3 to 4 really good years, prime years, even after they turn 30. So he's going to be really good. And I wish the Cowboys could have got him in. They don't know what team offered him 1 year, $12 million. Because some team offered him 1 year, $12 million. He thought that was his best deal, but then the Ravens obviously made a bigger offer, more guaranteed money, longer years. I pray that it was the Cowboys.
I think it was the Browns.
It was going to be the Browns.
I think it was the Browns.
1 year. Because the Cowboys could have swung that. They could have swung a 1 year, $12 million rental pretty much for him. But, anything else would have been really tough for them to do.
As a Cowboys fan, but everything I read was Jerry Jones had his number, or Thomas had his number.
They were locked in at
and unless they were going to meet in the middle somewhere, that just wasn't going to
happen. But Kenny Vaccaro, he makes his money differently. And we always talk about that Tavon Austin game, speaking of the Cowboys, where Texas plays West Virginia, and they spin Kenny Vaccaro down as the nickel, and he gets to play man-to-man on the most versatile player, arguably, in college football at the time. And that's all NFL scouts need to see about his versatility. So I think that's why he makes a lot of money, and that's why his value is increasing. Because I think that's where the game is going. It's kind of where Kenny Vaccaro's game is. He's a 5-tool safety, no doubt. You can play him in the box. You can play man-to-man. He can play zone. You can back him up as a middle field safety or back in the 2 deep. And then you have Adrian Phillips.
Real quick before you get to Adrian Phillips, can I read you this interesting Kenny Vaccaro stat? This is coming from Alan Bell, who's our NFL managing editor at 24/7 Sports. These are players with 8+ sacks and 8 interceptions in the last 5 years in the NFL. There's only 4 guys that have done it.
Oh, hold on! I gotta write this stat down. I'm a DB. I gotta have this. Is good. Okay.
So this is NFL defenders in the last 5 years with 8+ sacks and at least 8 interceptions. Harrison Smith, Luke Kuechly, C.J. Mosley, Kenny Vaccaro.
Wow. So 2 linebackers.
So when you talk about versatility,
the best safety.
Yeah, that says it right
He's
there.
basically Honey Badger light for you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Bigger. Except he's bigger and a little bit more physical. You know what I mean? But in terms of what he can do for you and the outer ways you can utilize him, I totally agree.
I remember when he exploded onto the radar was whenever he was covering Keenan Allen in the slot the year before the Tavon Austin game. But like, it's something that he's had that skill set that ever
he doesn't
since.
Panic. I mean, so think about right now the slot position, the slot wide receiver position is increasing in value on the field at every level of football, even here with the Longhorns, right? After the little Jordan Humphrey thing, they want Brew McCoy to settle in there. They'd like Jake Smith to settle in there. I mean, you want prime talent there. It's just easier to create separation in that position. At the NFL level, a little bit different. What the NFL has decided to do with the slot is, all right, yeah, we'll put our primary receiver in there every now and then to get a matchup, but whoever our that receiver is who's really savvy, who has a great chemistry and connection with our quarterback, we'll put him in the slot and we'll give him a two-way go, and he can create separation easier and be able to manipulate space. That's why Julian Edelman, not the best athlete at the wide receiver position for the Patriots, but he's perfect for that slot role. Same thing with a Cole Beasley. Same thing with a Cooper Kupp. You know what I mean? Same thing. I mean, that you can go down the line for that. Even little Jordan Humphrey, for what we're finding out, not a great athlete necessarily, not a freakish athlete,
but it makes total
really
sense.
Good football
this
player
chemistry
that you put in the slot right there.
And the main thing that it can manipulate is when the defense wins, because right now you're trying to get a pass rush. And we've already seen, just like the idea that you have QB in the shotgun to extend the run game with these screens. But whenever you still have to go and execute and say the defense wins, gets to your quarterback before expected, it's best to have that player with the best chemistry be the closest to the quarterback, because within those first 2 seconds you can still beat it. Even if the defense beats you, you can beat that defense because you have that best receiver or best receiver connection closest to the quarterback. Makes him more comfortable to be able to be reliable to throw the ball to that spot that it's supposed to be, even though I'm in the chaos or under duress.
And I will say, even to that point, I think the receivers in the slot now, sometimes they're not even running routes, man. They're just
looking.
It really is kind of a get open philosophy, especially with like Julian Edelman, and when they get really good. I mean, Julian Edelman and Tom Brady probably have it the best way.
Head on the swivel.
Edelman's just getting open. He's not really.
So we've gone beyond option routes to just
settling
finding
the space.
Find the seam in the zone. I mean, it's what Shipley did in 08.
Cole Beasley did it really well with Dak Prescott.
Shipley and Colt did it so great over the middle of the field. They were one of the first ones to ever do it.
And then that goes to Quandre Diggs. So Quandre Diggs is a guy we all know naturally a corner. Oh, not naturally. Naturally, he's a football player.
Yeah.
All right, we decided to put him at corner here at Texas, and he also was able to play the nickel here at Texas. But don't forget, Coach Aquina always said, I was thinking about putting Quandre at safety if we need him to play safety. All right, if we needed him to do that, we could do that. So what you have with Quandre in Detroit is they list him as a safety. But he just comes down and he's basically their nickel and their dime back. Matt Patricia likes to play a lot of sub packages, nickel and dime packages. So he loves Quandre in there because Quandre is listed as one of their starting safeties. But hell, if I need Quandre to spin down and be my nickel or my dime, or if I need to play 40 personnel and I need my safeties to go down and cover the slot, he can do that. Which is kind of weird for a guy his size, he likes to hit. And he's good at it.
Yeah.
That's his freakish thing about him is not the fact that he can cover, because he's a really good football player and he's got really good hips and he's got really good explosion coming out of his breaks. Straight ahead speed, not necessarily great, but he reminds me of Dre Bly. He's got great football instincts and he's good at angles, so he can cut off receivers and he knows how to utilize his body. But the thing that makes him special is a guy that size is not supposed to be able to hit that hard. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It's a bumblebee with the wings that small and a body that large.
Big head.
To be able to fly. Like, he's not supposed to be able to hit that hard, but he can. Right. And I think that's where he's like, oh, I can put him at safety, because he'll come down and I'll put him in the alley and he'll fill the alley.
He's that physicality guy. I mean, your Quick Jammer's little brother. It's just something that's that unique
Try
aspect.
to exploit that against Quandre, which some teams have. And it's like, oh, that's a mistake. That dude would love loves to come down and fill the alley or play cover 2 corner if you want to get physical. So that's what sets this apart. Adrian Phillips, only thing I'll say about him is, long time ago, and I told you guys this, when I was talking to Coach Akita, he said he's the only guy that I've ever coached, up until the point he was at Texas, maybe he's at Stanford. He told me Justin Reed at Stanford actually was in the same mode too, starting right now for the Texans. He said he's the only guy that's played all positions in the secondary. I put him at every position in the secondary, and he played it. And that's why, as an undrafted free agent, he made his bread and butter as a special teams guy. But at the NFL level, Adrian Phillips can play, and because he's so versatile, and his football IQ is through the roof, because he can pick up almost any concept instantaneously and be able to execute on the field. That's why that guy makes a roster. May not get drafted because the specs don't match up. You know what I mean? The measurables don't necessarily make him an NFL star, but you put him on the football field on the roster, and he just translates to the football field.
Yeah, and you combine the fact that where they're at in their careers, like you talked about Earl being maybe his last big contract type career, but with the way that football's going and the way that we've seen, because you already explained how the safety superstar can be one that is still in his prime later, but now with the new rule changes, the less physical nature of being a defensive back, the same way that quarterbacks, you may be able to play longer, and that's why it's so big for these other guys to get that first big contract, because Adrian Phillips and Quandre, it's good to have that first few years, but you really get paid on that next one. And then if you happen to be in a position where in previous years players didn't withstand decades of this type of physicality at that position, now you may actually get them to be able to have an extended back end of their career. So it's a good time to be a DB, and it's fitting for Texas being DBU, and it makes sense when Texas is able to recruit a whole nother class of kids to come in and be able to be that next wave. And like when you were explaining the physicality of Quandre, it was just making total sense as to why you see more Foster at the nickel type situation, because he's it seems like he has that just natural physicality to him and embraces it and plays with it. So it would only make sense that your nickelback be a guy that also has that ingrained in him.
And Angleton DVs, man.
Boy, that's East Texas, and you're from Texas.
It's interesting, Rod. You know, when you look back, we talked last week about, we'll look back at the 2017 defense and look at the amount of NFL guys that it produced. But you look at this offseason, and you look back at that 2012 Texas defense and look at the contracts those guys are signed. Adrian Phillips, we talked about his deal. Kenneth Vaccaro on his deal. Quandre on his deal. Malcolm Brown gets a deal with the Saints for, I think, $15 million. Alex Okafor, 24 over 3 years. I think 18 or 16 guaranteed from the Chiefs. Jordan Hicks getting $20 million guaranteed from the Cardinals, which Jordan Hicks is like, it's freaky to think about all the injuries he had at Texas and all the injuries he's had in the NFL, and he still hits his free agent year and gets $20 million guaranteed.
He's one of those guys, though.
He's a real tool.
He's the Sean Lee type player where, you know what I mean, when he does play, he is one of the best players like on your team.
And he's like the best covered linebacker arguably in the league when healthy, at least was when he came in. So like that's a unique tool that no matter what, you aren't a normal linebacker, and we shouldn't be using you as one because it's only going to it may cause you to get off the field and not be able to do your skills. So him being a niche, though, that's something that can age well if his body doesn't betray him.
You know, I'm all for it. But I totally got that. He reminds me of Sean Lee. Like if he's healthy, man, he's legit.
He's like anybody can look back at that 2012 defense now and be like, man, how are they that bad with that many like legit NFL guys?
You know what I always
I know. I mean, we talked about that.
I'm telling you, I think this is what Todd Orlando's got to deal with. It's the central nervous system. It's where you lose the players and how drastically. You have to impact that loss. Like how, you know, I mean, think about 2012. What were you losing from that 2012 defense right up the gut?
Keyston Randall, Manny
Acho, Keenan Robinson, Blake Gideon. Yeah. One DB started more games than any other DB in the history of DBU. Manny Acho, football IQ, through the roof. All right? We'll say that here, right? He's one of them guys. All right, Keenan Robinson, NFL vet. Did he just retire?
Yeah.
He decided to retire, by the way, but could have still made a roster.
I think he was in camp last year when he retired.
Yeah, he decided, I'm done.
I want to say he was with Matt. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Look this up. I think it was Buffalo.
Yeah, something like that. He was in Washington the longest. I can't remember, but he was with the Giants for a while. Yeah, I mean, he decided to retire. Then there was Keeson Round, who was a really good, kind of rock of Gibraltar figure on that defensive line for him. And they lost all that in one season. They still had a ton of talent around that group. As you just mentioned, a ton of it.
But we forget, too, that and Rod, you were, I'll go back to this, you were on the sideline when you were doing sideline reporting. You were in Oxford at the Ole Miss game when Jordan Hicks got hurt and went out. And we saw the difference in that defense with Jordan Hicks and without Jordan Hicks. And
No doubt.
It was like, you couldn't quantify what he meant to that defense.
And that's what he meant to that 2014 defense, or 13. Well, no, 15 defense, sorry. Right? The 14 defense going to 15?
Yeah.
Right? Sorry. Get my years mixed up. The 14 going into 15 year where he and Steve Edmond were his two starting inside linebackers.
Right.
Malcolm Brown, you just talked about, big money. All right, he was the D tackle, first round pick. And then in the back end,
Quandre
Diggs. You had
Thompson was gone.
Mikel Thompson ended up leaving. I mean, so you lost a lot with that group, kind of right up the gut. And I think you still had talent around that group, man. There was still talent around those guys. I just think losing all that at one time is tough, and that's what Todd Orlando's got to deal with. Yes, he lost Malik last year, but now Gary Johnson and Malik are gone. Now, you did lose Puna, but at least you had Chris Nelson there, who had some experience too. But now he's gone. The saving grace will be you don't lose your back end, that central nervous system piece. You still have Brandon Jones and Katie Stone.
Probably had the best safety tandem in the country, if we're being. I say that, as objective.
I know they're the best in the Big 12. That's in the country. Alabama's always got one or two.
As comparable.
The only reason I don't say it, because I agree with you. The only reason I don't say it, because I haven't done the research, but Alabama always has one.
They will,
Yeah, so that's why I don't say it. But I'm with you, man. You're right. I'm with you. I'm right there. They're
definitely were the best.
And with Grant Delpit back at LSU,
but if you want to consider trios, if you say trio or core, then I say Texas may have the best one in the country.
Mm-hmm.
See, then you include B.J. Foster, then you include DeMarvion Overshown. Who's got
right? And that's how we should view modern football now too.
Who's got
let's just look at it
like that?
Let's just look at it from this standpoint, right?
Yeah.
We'll start the spring football talk, which Texas is off this week. They got in 3 practices before the break. They'll hit it running when they come back next week. Rod, when I look at this defense, I really think they're already preparing for that LSU game, because when you look at how their personnel is going to stack up, B.J. Foster can be your nickelback against a team like LSU with what they run offensively.
He's ideal against a team like LSU.
Right. Yeah. So, and then I think you're just continuing. We talked about it a lot. I think defensive line-wise, I think your plan against LSU is going to be pretty much the same as it was against Georgia, where you're just going to try to come at them in waves, which you don't hear the concern as much about, Gerald Wilbon or Taquan Graham or Malcolm Roach, because those guys have played a lot of football. They've been around here a while. It's, can you get Daniel Carson ready? Keandre Coburn dealing with the kidney issues, getting him cleared and back on the field. Getting a guy like Jacoby Jones ready. Bimage coming off the shoulder surgery. Just getting as many quality bodies as you can find. And honestly, I don't think they're that freaked out in terms of that LSU game about their ends. And now I know, look, you got to deal with the big picture, right? Yeah. But let's be real. I think the staff is already looking at that LSU game, just like they've done with USC the last 2 off seasons and what have you. But I think you're not freaking out, because guys like Jeff McCulloch and Dele Adeoye, they're perfect for a team like LSU.
Yeah, because LSU, they'll spread you out. They're only spreading you out because they want to run it. You know what I mean? They're not spreading you out because they actually want to throw the football or have a prolific passing game. They just want to get physical, and they want to dominate at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, so I agree with you. It's kind of what Georgia was. It's not that far from where Georgia, at least conceptually, where Georgia wanted to go with Texas. And Texas was able to obviously win the battle up front, win the trenches. So I'm with you. I think LSU conceptually, I don't think it's a hard team for Texas to game plan for. But as LSU, they just have the best athletes in the country. They can go, blow for blow, even with the Bamas and the Georgias of the world. So once again, that's the test. Do you have, as you pointed out, do you have the depth at D-line? Do you have the manpower straight up to just go toe-to-toe with LSU for 4 quarters and beat them and impose your will?
What's going to be your best mix in the secondary? Can
you know what I mean?
Do you have, linebackers that can thump and run, which... I mean,
you don't know right now. Your linebackers. That's one of your concerns. The defensive line showed us in the Georgia game that there's a lot of depth in that defensive line. And yes, you lose a lot, but man, I'm with you. I like that they got Roach coming back. Taquan Graham is going to be one of the crucial pieces on that defensive line. I think they got some pieces, some building blocks on that defensive line. Linebacking core, you're really starting from scratch.
And then you throw DeGabriel Floyd's neck issue on there right now, which he's dealing with the stingers. They found out he had stinger issues in high school. He's had an MRI. He wasn't cleared for contact before the break, and he's going to be a really big part of this. If I unplug my freaking power cord one more time, I'm just going to throw this thing across the room. Gosh.
But, yeah, anyway. You know what I mean? Like, because think about this. We found out now, and Todd Orlando knew before everybody, and we observed it, but we didn't have, there weren't quantifiable proof of it, but now we do after the combine, that Gary Johnson and Malik Jefferson truly 4.53 and 4.43 were freaks. Like, you were like basically what the Cowboys have in Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith at your linebacking combo, which made you truly unique. Now, you're going to lose the most unique element of that defense. And how do you compensate for that loss, that dramatic loss of speed? You know what I mean? Right, like I said, at the core of your defense, in the central nervous system of it. So I think either more speed on the back end, where you have a ton of athletes that you've recruited, guys like B.J. Foster and DeMarvion Overshown playing more, and on the defensive line where you do have some depth. And as you pointed out, he wanted guys that can play multiple shades, meaning better athletes all around on the defensive line. And all the guys that he likes, they kind of fit in the same mold, the Taquan Grahams and the Malcolm Roaches of the world.
Moro Ojimo.
I think Ojimo is a guy he wants to be that. He wants basically three guys at least that can play multiple shades. And right now I think maybe that's the three. I don't know. You know what I mean? I think because you got Roach, you got Roach, and you got Graham. I'm trying to think of who's the other guy.
Because I think Marcus Bimage at this one. Marcus Bimage is probably more of like a situational pass rush guy. I think.
Yeah,
and that's not to diminish him, but that's when you really want him on the field. If you can get him on the field on third down, like Bimage is perfect if you can, put him in like in a NASCAR type package. I really when he can be. Really,
but I think he wants guys literally that he can put at D tackle and D end. He wants Grahams and Roaches.
And I think Daniel,
you know what I mean. And I think Ojimo kind of fits that. Colburn's a D tackle. So is Wilburn. Wilburn's a D tackle.
Yeah, Daniel Carson Rod might be the most interesting guy on that defense.
It's true
because
he's tall.
It's 6'3", 6'4", and 305. Like he looks physically like a nose, but you're like he intrigues me because his background as a shot put discus guy in high school, just raw athlete that they took and they said, look, let's just take him and see where his body goes. Now you've got that guy with kind of, and keep in mind, during the Sugar Bowl, like he was playing, nose tackle on the scout team, mimicking Georgia's defensive line. So I mean, he's got that kind of bulk that you would think of.
Got the nose tackle to do it.
But again, I think that versatility, man, I think he's a guy that can play multiple shades. And maybe he's a redshirt freshman. Maybe they don't want him doing a lot of that, like playing multiple shades. Like, look, just get really good at learning nose, and then we'll kind of branch you out from there. But I think by the end of the year, man, we could look at that D-line group going into 2020 and saying, wow, all you lose, you lose what? Roach and Chisholm? Everybody else is back?
That would be big.
Like
Texas hasn't had that at the D-line position in a long time.
No, you're right.
And then, you could be looking at going into 2020 being again 8-9 guys deep.
And you want to have those hybrid type guys like you're saying. When you said just those frames, like 6'3", 305, that's exactly what Lamar Houston is, and that was the type of prototype we talked about a decade ago, as the guy that is athletic enough to chase down anybody. If you're going to have a quarterback there, unless you got like the fastest quarterback around, you got guys almost as athletic as those
Sam
quarterbacks.
Macho was like that, right? Sam Macho was playing D tackle,
that was crazy.
D end. I think in the league he played outside linebacker. That's the guy you want. That's Malcolm Roach. You really just want those. I just want like those guys from
didn't they experiment with Okafor defensive tackle?
That same year, whenever him and Houston, it was all three of those guys.
That's kind of a Minahu move. With just like
that was just when you didn't have those. Who was it? The Dorseys and Bibles. Like all of the D tackles were just gone, and you didn't have any. And that's
no. This was before. This was like 2010, I think, when Okafor was like you lost Lamar Houston. Yeah, I think
okay, could be.
Yeah, I don't remember what Will Muschamp's reasoning was. I've slept since then.
But I remember. He was working Houston, Acho, and Okafor all at D tackle at some point.
You see 3 guys on your D line. It's almost like the offensive line principle, right? With Herb Hand, you want 2 guys that can play more than one position. At least 2 guys on your offensive line every year, and I think Herb Hand's gonna identify those guys year to year. And I think, and the same thing, I would do it in the defensive backfield, and I do it on the D-line. I always make sure, like, no, I got 2 or 3 guys that can play more than one position, and it just is all about evaluation, and it's all about development, and then you figure out, okay, when do I utilize this guy's versatility for a matchup advantage for us? And against certain teams, oh, you know what? I need more speed on the field. Let's go NASCAR packages. I'm moving Malcolm Roach to D tackle. Yeah. All right. Against certain teams, like, no, I need more bulk. I need a presence in there. I need Coburn and I need, Wilburn. I need guys actually playing D tackle. I need a presence there to reset the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean? Like you give yourself more options to be malleable and be a multiple defense, not only in personnel and formation, but also in philosophy.
And we saw how the Georgia game unfolded.
That's Georgia.
And there were times, when you got to 3rd and long, that you said, okay, yes, we've been having to deal with Georgia's bulk on 1st and 2nd down, but we've got them in a surefire passing down. Let's go ahead and play a little kind of NASCAR package, little speed package. Malcolm Roach was playing over the ball.
He was playing D tackle, like nose tackle, which in the Big 12 makes perfect sense too. Once you get somebody in pass situations, but even in that situation against Georgia, when anybody in 3rd and long, Malcolm Roach at D tackle, that's a matchup Texas wins.
And just to point out another aspect that is the reason why you have to have that type of multiplicity is just because you're limited a certain amount of scholarships, and that's a roster spot. And instead of having a backup, you're able to manufacture this depth. So then you don't worry, like, say, whenever you lose a lineman like Connor Williams and your line goes to crap because you have nothing and it's such a massive gap between him and the replacement. If you have somebody that is able to play multiple positions and he's a starter, it's like he can bump over. Now it's like you have an 86, and every time you add a position to a person, that's like you're adding a roster spot. That's 87, that's 88, and that's the amount of people that you have there. And if you only have players that play one position, you really get confined to whatever your roster is right then. And if you lose something, you'll be way more susceptible to injuries than if you don't have that type of depth.
Rod, I had a thought, and you can tell me if I'm way off or if I'm on the right track, talking about the corner duos. And I want to talk corner real quick before we transition to offense. We've talked safety quite a bit in the early goings here, spring practice. But I just had a thought that when you look at Jalen Green and Anthony Cook, Kobe Boyce, I think I've talked about his development, I think doesn't need to be taken lightly because if he's a starting caliber player and so is Jalen Green and so is Anthony Cook, that allows you to, against a team where maybe you can't have B.J. Foster in the nickel, maybe Anthony Cook slides over and he's your nickel guy or whatever. But with Cook and Green specifically, I looked at that and said, that's almost like having like a Rod Babers, Quentin Jammer corner tandem, which Cook, I look around and say he's more like you in terms of the guy who was the technician, understood football really well, had the football IQ. And then you look at Jalen Green and like Quentin Jammer, just like the freak athlete and like one of your first guys you want getting off the bus, just an elite press cover corner, elite man cover corner. Yeah. Jalen Green, as we talked about, his deal is going to be, can he handle zone coverages and nuances of the defense, which I and not to directly compare him to Quentin Jammer, but Jammer playing safety and just his background,
helped
I think
him out.
That wasn't really an issue for him. But I just thought of those two guys. I was like, man, that really, those guys, you look at their skill sets, and it really reminds me of when you had, Rod B and Quentin Jammer at corner.
And I hear that Kobe Boyce, and thank you for that, actually. It reminds me of the good old days. But I heard Kobe Boyce is also having a really good camp, and we talk about the versatility of these guys and being able to move them around in certain situations. If, let's say you're going up against a team that has a really good slot wide receiver and say, all right, we need basically somebody that can cover. We need to straight up put our best cover man, and maybe that's Anthony Cook.
Right.
And you put your best cover man in the slot, and he can play nickel. Then you may need somebody else to play corner, and that's when having a guy like Kobe Boyce who's having a decent spring practice, he really,
I think confidence with him is huge.
Well, yeah, because it was decimated because he was undressed last year at Oklahoma State game in the first quarter. Not all his fault because he. Right. Chris Boyd and being suspended.
Well, I think even before that, I think go back to the Maryland game when Devontae Davis has the neck deal, and Kobe Boyce plays pretty much the whole game against Maryland.
Yeah.
And plays well, and you didn't really notice him on the field. Which, if you're a corner out on an island, that's good. If nobody notices you, I thought he played well. And in the Tulsa game, he didn't play well at all, and it affected him. And that was pretty much the last we saw of Kobe Boyce.
Teams were targeting. Yeah. They were going after him.
That was pretty much the last we saw of him until you had to have him in there.
Yeah, that's why it'd be great if he actually didn't become a liability back there in the secondary and you could actually move some pieces around. So having a third cover corner would be really, really instrumental in terms of giving that secondary more options. So, listen, I'm with you, though. I think Jalen Green and Anthony Cook, I'm not worried about those two. I think they really are. I think they're young phenoms. I think both are young prodigies. I'm not worried about the safeties either. I'm not worried about nickel because I think B.J. Foster in that role is going to be really, really good. So the only position I should say I'm worried about right now is probably linebacker on that defense. I'm a little concerned about linebacker, actually.
The two inside spots.
Yeah, I am.
And you
because
should.
you know you need two. And they're not really inside linebackers or outside linebackers anymore. I mean, yeah, situationally you can say, hey, I need my B backer out there, and I want this and that. But no, for the most part, you're going to be in a 3. You're going to be in 3-2-6, or you're going to be in 3-3-5. 75% of the downs.
Could
this year? I
don't know if Orlando's done it. I haven't studied him that far back, like in depth with the Utah State stuff. Since Osai, if Osai is the presence we think he can be,
the B backer there, yeah.
Could you do like some 4-1-6?
It's good. Yeah, which is a 4-man front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Osai makes you a 4-man front with his presence.
Yeah, because he play down or up, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean he's one of those guys where I think that going back to the versatility to keep you multiple from down to down and even within the down, you love for Osai to be out there because he can turn you into a 4-man front or back to a 3-man front.
And they haven't had that. They haven't had that B backer. Like they thought Nashawn Hughes could be that guy. He wasn't. We saw Jason Hall essentially take over for him when the Lightning package became a base package 2 years ago. And then last year, they were pretty much either, they were 3 down the whole time, whether they were running dime or nickel.
Yeah, they were 3 down. But I think they'll still be 3 down. I think you may see a 4-man front, 3 down with Osai on the edge. But it all depends on how he wants to play. But he doesn't know what he has out of these linebackers yet.
Right.
Well, now he's getting some type of, a picture of it or a glimpse of it. But that's the key. You really won't know until in Big 12 action you figure out which one's going to be a liability in pass coverage.
There you go, and that's the main thing. Who can't stop the run, or what's going on,
who can hold up against.
It just comes up to the skill sets of the players, and if this guy's athletic enough that he can do the job and be average, then they're going to be able to do it, and that's going to make you a matchup nightmare, and it's actually going to be good for the defense. But then if it's actually exploited from time to time, that's sort of why I love what I've seen from Orlando's ability to be malleable inside a game and adjust. Like in the second half, you've seen a lot better of defenses. You'd seen him adjusting after first quarters really well when you look back through the last 2 years or even in his previous stops. So it seems as if he understands that he's seeing what he's seeing during a game and isn't afraid to make that adjustment. Now, it also means he's probably not afraid to try new things, and that's why right now we're just sort of hypothesizing about how the pieces could fit together, but that's the luxury of him landing at Texas finally, that he gets to handpick the type of players that he wants, and he has more elite athletes than he's really ever had before. So if he's going to do something outside the norm, it's going to be with these type of players.
Rod, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I think Jeff McCulloch is a guy that we've seen him make plays. I think the main issue with Jeff McCulloch is we don't really know what his baseline is.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because, I like Jeffrey McCulloch. I just, I don't know if he's one. I don't know if he's a guy that has enough of a versatile skill set to play linebacker for Orlando. You know what I mean?
Like, seems like a traditional linebacker.
Yeah, I think to me he's and I'm not knocking him by his definition, but I do think he wants a guy that he can drop back in pass coverage, that also can blitz, that also can hold up against the run. He has a lot of his linebackers,
especially that rover position.
He does. He has a lot of those guys.
And McCulloch seems to be more of a niche, just traditional linebacker than a guy that's a great cover linebacker.
Yeah, he can prove me wrong, but we see in the Big 12 guys who are more traditional linebackers, even Wheeler, who's a really good player for Orlando, they can be exploited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll find out, he doesn't hold up well. And even guys like Malik were exploited at times because they figure out, he doesn't get our blocks well. All right, let's get a blocker in front of him. Let's just do that. All right, we get a block in front of him. Most of the time, he just ran around him because he had elite speed. But the Big 12, because you're the great offensive minds, not as many as they used to have from the air raid era, they're really good at figuring out how to exploit a vulnerability in a matchup especially with linebackers, because they don't listen. Texas on the back end, it's not going to be a lot for you to go after in that secondary. I mean, you maybe go after those young corners, but you ain't going after Caden Stearns and Brandon Jones if you're smart. You know what I mean? And I think those young corners will prove themselves early on really well. I think what Todd Orlando's going to focus on this way, Joseph Asai may end up getting the nod over other linebackers, pressure. I mean, pressure is what he's going to focus on. Because he knows those young guys can hold up. He doesn't want to leave them out in an island for too long. But he knows if I can just get pressure on these quarterbacks in the Big 12.
4 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell my DBs they have to do this.
They either get rid of the ball really quickly and they'll check it down, or they're going to throw picks, and we got ball hawks back there now. You know what I mean? Like, Caden Stearns is a ball hawk back there. Brandon Jones can make plays on the ball. I think, Anthony Cook is a guy, he's kind of like me. I think he's got better hands than me. But if he's a technician, he'll be around the ball a lot because they're going to test those young corners a lot. And now, is Jalen Green a guy that has good ball skills?
I think his ball skills are solid.
Yeah. There'll be opportunities for those young corners.
But B.J. Foster's a guy we've seen that has really good ball skills.
He has good ball skills. So I think if you're Todd Orlando, you want them to have opportunities to make plays on the ball, to force turnovers. They're going to come after those young corners. Yeah. But I think everybody knows that. I think the young corners know that. Everybody knows that. They're going to get help over the top. Your safety's got your back. Your safety's got great range. So it sounded like when I was playing, like really, you got veteran safeties that will kind of guide you. And I played with older, say Ahmad Brooks was a safety there, and even Quentin Jammer when I came, and even Greg Brown was an older safety. So they would really just guide me like, hey, I got you inside. I got your skinny post. I got the slant. I got, you know what I mean? You just worry about this. I got that. You know what I mean? And if they trust them, and you should trust Brandon Jones and Caden Stearns.
Well, that's big, is building that trust. Because trust isn't something that you just get. Yeah. You build that because you had relationships with those guys and they understood it. So over time, like that's what this has been so good, that these kids coming together so they get to build together.
They have that. And the communication is going to be the key. So I think the secondary is going to be really good. Pressure is going to be what they build the defense around, though.
That's a good thought, and we can pick that up as we go on. I do want to talk about offense before we get ready to shut it down today. And first off, the injuries. Anthony Cook's dealing with a hamstring issue. Tom Herman said it's a minor thing. It's not expected to be major. Yeah. They're planning on having him back when I know all coaches that split their practice say we're going to have him back after spring break. Plan on having Anthony Cook back after spring break. Keandre Coburn was cleared for non-contact stuff, which is a really good sign, dealing with his kidney issues. Yeah. The only one that's really concerning right now is DeGabriel Floyd with that neck issue. They ran an MRI, and they're going over with him, kind of seeing what he has not been cleared for contact yet, at least wasn't before the team left for spring break. Other than that, I mean, Caleb Johnson, getting him back healthy, him coming off of the shoulder issue he had in junior college. But really right on offense, and Tom Herman kind of alluded to this, he said you don't really ever want to say that you know what you got from a guy, but he kind of said they pretty much know what they've got from a guy like Colin Johnson and even a guy like Devin Duvernay. So I think the more reps you can get for those young wide receivers to work with Sam Ehlinger, the better you're going to be. And, man, that first group, that number one group they're rolling out there right now is really interesting because it's Malcolm Epps at the X, Brennan Eagles at the Z, which you wouldn't think. You look some of the Eagles, well, he's 6'2", 6'3", 200 pounds. Why is he at the Z? What I've heard is it's the straight line speed. It's that vertical speed. They want to see how that plays at Z. And then a guy like Josh Moore in the slot. That's 3 guys from the 2018 recruiting class. It's just a really interesting looking group when you watch it out there, even just watching them run routes on air, which is pretty much the bulk of what we get to see when we have open periods of practice. Just kind of the physical presence, Malcolm Epps is, and then Josh Moore, just watching him and his quickness and watching him come back off the collarbone injury. I'm intrigued by that number one group right now, really that receiver group right now, with no Colin Johnson, no Devin Duvernay, no John Burt.
It shows me they're experimenting with that Z. They like to experiment with it because one of the experiments worked out for them with Lil Jordan Humphrey. So I think they figured out that, okay, all right. So, and I think, like I said, every level of football is figuring, all right, with the slot, naturally, you can just get open in the slot. If you can't get open in the slot, then you don't need to be playing football. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, it's just really tough to guard somebody with a two-way go in the art of creating separation, which is what route running is. you already have an ability to manipulate space because you have so much more of it
and more
right
options
there, and more options inside the slot. So they're like, all right, Lil Jordan Humphrey, man, that worked out really well. Now let's see about, you say, straight up speed demon at the slot. Well, how does that affect? You know what I mean?
No, Eagles is playing at Z on the outside.
So this is like Duvernay, but this is exactly what they did to move Lil Jordan
and who's playing in the slot for him? Sorry.
Josh Moore.
Josh Moore. Okay.
But it's the exact same idea that they moved. Remember, we were like, oh, man, Duvernay, he's the body type of a slot receiver, body type on the outside. L.J. Humphrey is the outside receiver. But then we came into camp last year, and it was the other way around. And you had Duvernay on the outside, but that's because his speed at the Z going vertical, and you had L.J. at the slot.
Okay, yes, okay. Which is basically, so they're just taking the same blueprint they use with L.J. then, now.
But
the speed in the experiment, right. How they're utilizing the slot.
But to your point, Rod, I do think they're going to experiment with that slot, whether it's getting Jordan Whittington some reps there off a running back. I think Brennan Eagles is a guy that maybe you can look because of his size. Maybe you could look at using him in the slot. I'm intrigued by if you do get Colin Johnson back and you need to get Brew McCoy as much work at X as possible. We know he's going to work in the slot. I'm intrigued by Malcolm Epps working some slot.
Because they see a big tight end,
6'6", 230. With his basketball background. You talk about a guy as a the ability to rebound and play on a basketball court and finding space and working in space. I'm intrigued by him.
Yeah, no. I just think that's where they're trying to do some funky stuff. And like I said, I don't know exactly what they're going to do because they've had a lot of guys out. You know, they had Colin Johnson's out and Devin Duvernay, and so is John Burt. But whoever they decide to put in there because of the Lil Jordan Humphrey experiment and how well it went, I think it's going to be crucial. And they, like you said, they may put like 2 or 3 different guys. They may start utilizing just that position overall and rotating different guys through it for situational.
I still think if Brew McCoy is eligible, I think the bulk of his reps are going to come in the slot this year.
Okay. But Jake Smith is a guy who's going to play in the slot too.
Well, he will, but I just think when you just look at Brew McCoy, Brew McCoy's snap numbers, I think when you look at his snap totals by the end of the season, the overwhelming majority, I think, will be in the slot.
But will the overwhelming majority of the slot reps have gone to him?
I don't think so. I think you're going to have to even it up.
They're going to split it up, right?
Because the dynamic with all 3 of those guys is so different. Like Brew McCoy is more of the Lil Jordan Humphrey type, the bigger, thicker body type, can work through the trash. Josh Moore is kind of the quicker guy. I think creating separation, the ability to go vertical with him. And then Jake Smith is exactly what they want in a slot. So you've got 3 guys with 3 distinct skill sets.
And
I think all 3 of them
basically manipulate who you're facing on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I mean, you can't replace the presence Lil Jordan Humphrey had, the skills he had, but you could definitely like Moneyball recreate his production with those 3 guys.
Well, I think right now it's just because all those guys are young, but ultimately, man, at least 2 of those guys probably have a higher ceiling than Lil Jordan Humphrey.
I would think so. Yeah,
I mean, Brew McCoy definitely does, and Jake Smith may too, depending on how they utilize him.
And I don't think we should sell Josh Moore short either. Just talking to people behind the scenes, they really like kind of what he brings to the table.
Is he the fastest out of those?
Oh gosh,
those guys, those 3 guys, Brew McCoy and Jake Smith.
He's faster than Brew McCoy. I mean, I don't know because Jake Smith doesn't. He wasn't a track guy in high school. He isn't a track guy. He's a baseball lacrosse guy, which makes sense why he handles the ball so well and hand-eye coordination and all that stuff. You know, I think it kind of probably helps you. But yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, you watch Jake Smith's tape, and people that have seen him up close attest to the straight line speed. But I don't know. I would probably still take Josh Moore.
Okay.
As the fastest guy of those 3.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. No, that's like you said. So
I think it would be close between him and James.
Everybody's got a different, kind of a different asset they bring to the position.
Right. So, Rod, I definitely wanted to hit on receiver, and I wanted to hit on offensive line a little bit too, and mainly just the physical look of this group, because you see the weights and you see, clearly Denzel Okafor, I don't know if he's the 320 he's listed at, but you would definitely see his body looks right like he's 300 plus and what you would expect a college lineman to be like. This is the best looking group of offensive linemen I've seen Texas have in a really long time. And none of these guys are fat. Like, they don't look fat. Like, they've all gained weight, but they don't look fat.
Yeah, they're just...
it's not like me putting on a pair of pads. Like, they look like... Tope Amade carries that 340 very well as you can carry.
And what are we looking at? What is Denzel Okafor playing right now?
Tackle now, but that's the beauty of her, man, is you know by the end of the spring...
He's going to be playing both.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, Zach Shackelford.
Kurt Statter, same thing.
Zach Shackelford was in the media session last week and said that he's like, you guys know how Coach Hand works. I mean, everybody's going to be playing.
Yeah.
Pretty much everywhere by the end of the spring.
I love that. I mean, I just love that is his, kind of his main philosophy. It's like, no, everybody learns how to play at least one other thing. Some of you guys will excel at it. Some of you guys will suck at it. But either way, it'll make you a better player in the end, and you'll understand more of the overall kind of continuity scheme and why you're doing what you're doing and why it's so important and why it affects the guy next to you so much.
Yeah, it's so big. It's like showing your work in math instead of just having the number there as an answer.
I love that idea.
And it's so big because you're always going to have an idea what your teammate or where your teammate needs to be. And if it seems simple, but that's something that can get lost if you get stuck inside your assignment and not seeing that overall picture can end up being an issue down the road.
I just love the way Herb Hand runs a practice because individual, and this is one of those position groups where I'm glad we get to see individual with the offensive linemen when they let us into practice.
I love when you talk offensive line.
And there's some group. He's
an offensive lineman at heart.
Rod, there's some position groups where you watch individual and it's either like a glorified grab ass session or it's just there's just not much to.
It ain't no line.
Yeah, you really don't get wide receivers are like that. Watching wide receivers don't do a damn
tight end to me is one of those. Like I gain nothing other than seeing how guys look physically.
Going through the motions.
I gain nothing by watching tight ends.
Yeah, if they drop the ball, then you're like, oh, his hands suck.
I'll tell you, under Tom Herman, I don't think an individual. I've seen a tight end catch a pass. This is the third spring through 2 camps. I don't think an individual I've ever seen a tight end.
They only get rewarded in games.
All
they do is work blocking. That's it. All they do is work blocking.
That's gonna change, man. That's gonna change.
But I love watching like the D line do individual. I love going watching Todd Orlando put linebackers through individual because they're always working like footwork and drops and getting downhill and coming to balance. Even the safeties, they put balls. Jason Washington, Craig Nyberg, they put ball skills in everything.
I love some of the stuff they have the DBs doing, man. Like the change direction stuff, and
it's all like they use shoots all the time. Like I've never seen Texas DBs
staying low pad level. Yeah,
never seen Texas DBs use shoots as much.
No, I love it.
And what I said about tight ends, that's no disrespect to Derek Wareheim and that group. They're working hard.
You guys don't. Yeah, I mean, they just block it. It's all about physicality, though. That's what he wants.
Getting back to Herb Hand, like they were working pin and pull stuff, right? Where one side kicks down and the other side pulls around. But it was like, all right, let's see what it looks like with the center pulling. All right, now I want the left guard to pull. Now the left tackle, you pull. Now I want the right tackle, you pull and either kick out or lead up in the hole. Now the right guard does it. So basically everybody's working like, and they might not ever run a pin and pull or a counter where the backside tackle pulls ever. But at least he's getting an idea of, okay, based on this guy's footwork, can he handle it? And with a guy like Denzel Okafor, hey, what does the footwork look like? And when I put him from right tackle to left guard, does he have the feet to make that transition?
Yep, exactly right. I mean, I think that's what Coach Aquino would just do with guys when they would identify. I think this guy can play safety.
Yeah.
You're just looking at, the hip flexibility. You're looking at, like how does he look at the game? Does he have great eyes? Like, does he read his keys really quickly and really well? Is there a natural flow and transition out of the break? Like, just little stuff like that. You go, okay, that guy can transition. So, but every coach can't do that. I mean, I don't think I could do that as easily. I mean, Herb Hand has a gift for that. That is something that he has.
When you watch certain coaches take guys through individual, you can tell what those coaches value.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every time I watch D-line do individual, no matter whether it's been spring ball, camp, bowl practice, Oscar Giles really values ball get off. They always work on ball get off.
Baby. Yeah.
Herb Hand, we saw the tail end of them doing it, but his principles with his double team schemes, they do a lot of stuff on that 2-man sled, that Crowther sled, where they're working half-man leverage and footwork every single day. You just value that. And I think that's why this program, you're seeing them, Rob, becoming players that they're better at paying attention to detail. They're handling the small stuff because that small stuff gets driven home every day. We began the show talking about muscle memory. After a while, man, that stuff just becomes second nature. If you do it so much and you're doing it the right way, and it's valuable.
Details become routine.
Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, if you it depends on, like if you have, let's say your entire defense is built around the Tampa 2. All right, so when I was in Tampa, literally, our individual drills were built around the Tampa 2.
Right.
Yeah, getting the jam, forcing the receiver inside, eyes to the quarterback, the sinking of the hips and flipping of the hips, depending on what's the number 2 receiver
Y'all were
doing.
in alignment.
Like, literally everything. So
Herman.
but they ran Tampa 2 probably 70% of the time. So they want everybody to get really, really good at it. So everything revolved around that. So I mean, Herb Hand, I don't know exactly what the blocking scheme is for some. I'm sure it's zone blocking schemes, some is man blocking schemes, but I bet a lot of it is based on that philosophy, the half-man principle, where we end up in a double team. I want it executed perfectly. We can't afford to allocate resources for a double team and have y'all screw it up.
Right.
All right, we're putting 2 men on one guy. If we can't execute that to take one guy out in a numbers game, we're devoting 2 guys to it, then we lose. And we're really bad at our jobs, and we should be fired. All right, that's a simple principle that I agree with. And it's like the Tampa 2. The simple principle was get your hands on the receivers and disrupt them. You got one damn job. I'm not asking you to cover them down the field. I'm not asking you to play man-to-man on them. I'm not asking you to cover the deep third or cut fourth. I'm asking you to get your hands on the wide receivers and disrupt them inside. Can you start and do that? All right, because that's where we're going to start. Our whole defense is predicated on you doing that one thing. You do that, everything else goes right.
And Herb Hand with the double team principle, it all goes back to anybody that's ever heard Herb Hand. He's speaking at a clinic, or if he does have a media session where he gets to talk about kind of his principles, his beliefs. It's all about, he'll hear him use this term, vertical placement of the down defender. Yeah. Basically, if we can move that guy back 3 yards, we can gain at least 3 yards on first down every time we run the ball.
Yeah.
If that guy's at that down, if that defensive tackle's making TFLs or tackles at the line of scrimmage, then it doesn't matter what you call or how good your scheme is. If you can't block the guy in front of you closest to the ball, none of it matters.
Yeah, the whole damn blueprint collapses. The whole structure collapses. Yeah,
and it's stuff like that, Rod. When you start thinking about football, like, man, it sounds so simple. Yet when you hear like some offensive guys talk about their schemes, it's like, wow, sometimes that stuff gets really lost, and like you forget. Just move that guy. If you move him 3 yards, we'll gain at least 3 yards.
Yeah, Tom Herman had a great description of football. He said basically it is and he's talking about the offensive line specifically. He said you're trying to move somebody involuntarily against their will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to move them. And they don't want you to move them, but you have to do it.
Right. And their whole goal is to not be moved.
Is to not be moved. And it sounds simple, but you're right. It's getting back to the simple form of it. It's like, no. If we can just do that one thing. There are other things in the play and the execution that may not be ideal. And some guys may fail in their execution. But in this one aspect of this play, we have to succeed. We have to succeed when we have the double team. And the wide receiver may miss a block. And the tackle may have only gotten a little shade of that defensive end. But this one aspect of the play we must be perfect on.
Right.
And the entire defense blocks off of it.
And then it'll make up for the mistakes. So, no, I feel him on that. Don't be obsessive about everything, because then the young men don't know what the hell you're obsessive about. You know what I mean? They don't know like what to emphasize and what to prioritize. But when there is a point which you have to be obsessive about one thing as a coach, that's what you stick. And that's why certain things they always alignment assignment sticks out to me for Coach Hill. Alignment assignment. Like alignment assignment. What's your alignment? What's your assignment? You would ask some guys, and some guys go, and they wouldn't know. It's like, no, what the hell is your alignment?
You're hesitating.
What's your assignment? All right, you got inside leverage. You're 7 yards off, and you're playing cover 3 or whatever the hell it is. You know what I mean? Like, know that, number one, and then everything else will fall into place. But you got to get that right.
I remember even like playing high school ball, playing offensive line, and we had a simple scheme. We were in a wing T offense, but it was a simple zone scheme. I still remember today, 1-2 LOS. When you get up there, your number one job, regardless of what the play is, what the skill, whatever it is, identify the first and second man on the line of scrimmage from the ball. Yeah. That's it.
And that's going to be with you until you die.
Yep. No, and same thing, Coach Ken, I can hear him now. Number one, number two, who's your number one? Who's your number two? Number one is the one close to the sideline. Number two is right inside that. Figure out who your number one, number two is. That's your keys. Number one, number two, number one, back to the quarterback. I mean, I can see it. You're right. It comes back
1-2 LOS, I remember
like muscle memory.
Yeah.
But as a coach, if you're really good, that will stick with you for 25 years.
Yeah.
Because he emphasizes everything. That I know, because that every day, same things. Like a household, your kids know, I better not leave dishes in the sink. Mama comes home with this in the sink. Oh, no. She don't really give a damn about me not walking the dogs or whatever. But if there's dishes in the sink when Mama get home, she she's gonna lose it, and everybody's gonna have a bad day. So you learn, you become conditioned. You know what I mean?
I remember that, and one of my high school offensive line coaches, who I'm still very close with. The other thing I remember is hat, hands, and feet. That's how you handle. That's how you're. Yeah. When you engage a defender, that's the three things you got to remember: hat, hands, and feet.
Yeah, exactly. Bring your feet with you. Don't forget. Don't bring the hat in the hands, then you'll fall forward. No, bring the feet with you. Bring your feet. Yeah. No, it all makes sense simplistically. And when you have a son, you'll be telling your son the same stuff. You really will.
I'll tell my daughter the same stuff.
There you go. One day you'll have.
We'll simplify this.
My daughter's got the hand in the dirt.
Simple rules.
Yeah, she can play football, I guess.
We're not playing football, but just whatever. But we're learning how to walk right now, so we're.
Hey, bring your feet with you.
Baby steps, man.
That can still apply.
Exactly. She's still in that stage where she's
1, 2,
bring your feet with you.
Where she's walking, she'll like grab my pant leg, and she's not sure if she wants to let go and stand on her own. So we're getting there.
That's
awesome. Way off from offensive line footwork, but we're getting there. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's show, guys. We will, maybe they'll have a practice when we get back in and record next week. I don't know. We'll see. I kind of see what the practice schedule is, but they're going to be blowing and going when they get back from spring break. Yeah. We're not that far. We're less than a month away from the spring game already?
Yeah, I think you're like 25 days or some 24 days.
April 13th. And Ludacris coming to town for a concert.
Luda.
Move.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's I think it's for the parents, honestly. I mean, the kids don't give a damn.
I mean,
they don't know Luda.
I got excited about
it. Exactly. Yeah, you're a parent.
That's
I think it's for like old people and parents and kids. They probably like, I don't really care about that.
Was that the guy that was at the All-Star game?
Yeah, exactly.
I saw he was like at the All-Star game.
Oh, he's in the Fast and Furious movies. That's probably how. That's honestly, if you're in college right now, that's probably how you know Ludacris.
Probably so. I didn't think about that.
From the Fast and Furious movie.
Most notably, most recently, I should say. Yeah, you learned about that. Yeah, I know it's cool. I think it's cool they're doing the concerts now, man. And I like they're doing them with old, kind of washed up rappers. I'm cool with that. Old washed up rappers are cooler than old washed up, well, like I think Oklahoma has like a country star that nobody even knows.
Lee Bryce is playing the Oklahoma.
I think it's better than that. Old washed up rapper is better than Lee Bryce.
Better than Toby Keith, who's always standing behind. There used to be Stoops had behind him JR from WWF and Toby Keith, and I was always like, there's Oklahoma, you keep him.
Toby Keith is an old washed up country singer. He's probably
He's always right behind Lincoln Riley.
He's bigger than Lee Bryce.
And about as worse of
him. Why did they get him instead of Lee Bryce?
Because he's there like on the field watching the game. Like he's their McConaughey.
He's their minister of culture.
Toby Keith is.
Oh, I'd much rather have Matthew McConaughey as our minister of culture than Toby Keith.
Yes, and so would oddly they would rather the Sooners probably rather have Toby than McConaughey. So to each his own.
Yeah, right.
Well, you got McConaughey and you got Ludacris coming in off of the spring game. So I don't know if McConaughey will be in town.
McConaughey should go on the stage with Luda. That would be awesome.
Yes,
if they did like a song together. Yeah. That would be awesome.
I would like that.
That would be interesting.
Not awesome, but interesting.
Yes. Matt, thanks for everything, man.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Rod B, appreciate the time and the knowledge.
Anytime, brother.
For Matt, for Rod, for Travis, the best damn videographer in the podcast game. For everybody at the Austin Radio Network and the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260, streaming on the Horn app and at hornfm.com, where you can get Rod each and every weekday on the Rodcast from 1 to 3.
Shameless plug.
And thanks to Matt, you can get this show anywhere you get your podcasts. Find us now on Megaphone with all the other podcasts in the 24/7 Sports Network. But you can always still get our archives on the Longhorn Blitz SoundCloud page.
Yep, just type in Longhorn Blitz.
For the Horn family, for the Horn's 24/7 family, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for downloading and listening, and we will catch you again on the next episode.
You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz with Horns247.com. Remember, for the latest Longhorn news 24/7, visit Horns247.com.